just, being excellent at her craft and goes on to make history. She deserves it. Her sport needs it. Um, Women's sports around the world, women athletes around the world deserve it. Um, so that's what I'm rooting for. And next week, as we're deeper into the U.S. Open tournament, obviously we will have more to share with you for stories on that. The one that I didn't get to before we move on to football is that last year's runner-up on the men's side in the U.S. Open has already lost. He was already eliminated. I think he had a round one exit. Might have been round two here. But yeah, he gone. Last year's runner-up, he gone. So, that it happens. Anybody on any day can beat anyone in any sport. So just remember that. And, watch some U.S. Open tennis. Tennis is a great sport, and it's not boring to watch. Like, you just got to have a decent attitude and a decent mind about what you're watching. But, all right. Well, there's my tennis talk. You're welcome, Uncle Neil. And let's finally get to some NFL before we got to shut down the show. We'll definitely hit the 2-hour mark tonight, it looks like, and maybe just a tiny bit beyond that. Again, I'm Scotty Ball, and you're listening to Balls Deep Sports Talk. Thanks so much. All right, now let's get into football. That's right. Yes, let's talk some NFL football. But before we get into the football talk, I want to remind everyone, all you listeners, that next week at 9:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, half hour into Balls Deep Sports Talk, we will be having our first ever inaugural and hopefully annual Balls Deep Sports Talk Fantasy Football Draft. This Fantasy Football League is simply meant to be a fun way for you, the listeners, and me, Scotty Ball, to be able to interact with each other, be able to prove or discredit our football knowledge and expertise, and just play for some bragging rights. Now, the winner, assuming we get enough people to have a league, the winner will get a big shout out on the show at the end of the season, and I might find a way to assemble some sort of prize package for said individual. But if you would like to play fantasy football with me, Scotty Ball, in the inaugural season of the Balls Deep Sports Talk Fantasy Football League, I would super greatly appreciate it. And you can do that by going to NFL.com. That's where we have the league on, is NFL.com. All you got to do is search the league Balls Deep Sports Talk, and then when you go to it, and you go to sign in, the password will be DEEP, D-E-E-P, DEEP. And then join the league. And the draft will be next week, like I said, at 9:30 during our normal airing hours time. So we'll all have 30 minutes to, sit down with our computer and our phone and get the show running and listening to on one of our devices. And then we'll have our other device to do our drafting. And so we'll be listening to Balls Deep Sports Talk and drafting fantasy football simultaneously next week at 9:30. So please, 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 I need at least 7 other people to go to NFL.com, search Balls Deep Sports Talk Fantasy Football League, enter the password DEEP, and join me for the draft next week so that we can have a Balls Deep Sports Talk Fantasy Football League. If it sounds like I'm begging, that's because I am. All right, now I will have a little bit of fantasy football news / advice / opinion coming up here in the segment. Oh, yes. Also, sorry though, before I get too ahead of myself, in regards to next week's show, next week will be the big mega NFL season preview extravaganza where you will get my complete season predictions for all 32 NFL teams, as well as the individual player awards given out at the end of every season. I have done that for years now. I'm never, nobody's ever 100% right on, but I'm usually pretty dang on the money for the most part. So you will not want to miss that as well next week. So next week's huge football week for Balls Deep Sports Talk. We got the fantasy football draft going on Wednesday night, 30 minutes into the show, and we will have our NFL preview extravaganza next week as well. All right, now talking about some real NFL football news, we'll end with my Vikings. Usually we start with my Vikings. We will end with my Vikings because I want to give you my proposal for the final roster cuts before we're all said and done here. All right, so regular NFL news. Start with Tom Brady and his balls. No ruling yet. Should have a decision by the end of the week. Sounding as if a 1 or 2 game reduced suspension is becoming much more possible now. Not to say that it's likely, but it's becoming much more possible now. And that's not on the NFL side at all. The NFL, the last time they met with him for the appeal, tried to reduce it to 1 or 2 games. Tom rejected and said that wasn't good enough. It had to be 0 games. So if a reduction compromise is agreed upon, it will be because Brady pulled his head out of his butt and said, yeah, okay, I'll take a reduction. But again, no final word yet, but should be by the end of the week. So keep checking your sports news outlets either tomorrow or Friday. And if you're looking for a new sports outlet, by the way, I can't believe I haven't plugged these yet. Follow me on Facebook, like me on Facebook, and follow me on Twitter. I prefer you follow me on Twitter. That's my favorite. At BDST Show is our Twitter handle, and I actually do a fairly decent job of original tweets and especially retweets from places like Espen and Nuffle.com and Mama Latest News, things like that. So it's another way where I can help keep you up to speed and up to date on news that's happening, even though the show is only once a week. Also a great way for you to ask questions or give feedback, comments, things of that nature. But if you prefer Facebook, which again I don't, I prefer Twitter. But if you prefer Facebook, we're on there too, and that's okay. And you would just search Scotty-Ball. I have 2 pages. You'll see the show logo, and they're both me. And that's how simple that is. All right. So again, Tom Brady's balls, expecting a decision sometime by the end of this week. Wide receiver extraordinaire Julio Jones of the Atlanta Falcons signed a 5-year, $71.25 million contract extension with $47.5 million of that guaranteed. That is the most guaranteed money in the NFL for a wide receiver, possibly for anybody. But I know for sure for a wide receiver. So congratulations, Julio Jones. Other than the fact that he's a little injury prone, he is a phenomenal player, both on the field and his personality. If you go and look into the things he was saying in this preseason, with his contract talks going on and stuff, some players, a lot of players choose to hold out, like Cam Chancellor in Seattle right now, who the Seahawks are still missing him and need to get him back in and end his holdout. But Julio said, I'm not going to hold out. It would only be letting my teammates down, and I'm going to come here and work for my teammates and work for this organization, and I'll let my agent do the negotiating, and I'm a football player. My job is to play football. And it is that simple, and it is that easy. And other players around the league take note. That's the right thing to say. That's the right attitude. R.G. Griffin. Robert Griffin III. RG3. But anyway, so let's go to the Bills, as they had a little bit of news. The Buffalo Bills the other day cut running back Fred Jackson. This coming off of the news that starting running back LaShawn McCoy is injured and may not be ready to go for Week 1. He's not out for a long period of time, at least he's not believed to be right now. But his status of availability for Week 1 is questionable at this moment. And the roster cuts were only down to 75, not to the final 53. So shocking that they would cut Fred Jackson on that one. I did hear a story that was an organizational move to try and reward him and thank him for past services by giving him ample opportunity and time to find another job elsewhere. If that was the thinking behind the timing of the cut, then props to the Bills organization. Because if you know you're going to cut the guy, he's not going to make the 53-man roster, and he's a veteran that's, done right by you always, then yeah, do the right thing by him and give him extra time and extra opportunity to find new work. But the big news with the Buffalo Bills was that they decided who their starting quarterback was going to be. It's not Matt Castle. He's actually likely to get cut, which I could have told you. I think I said that when he got traded. Find that episode on Spreaker. You'll know too. But yes, it's not Matt Castle. He's looking to get cut, and it's not E.J. Manuel, who I would have went with and was kind of hoping would win the job. They are going with Tyrod Taylor, extremely young man. So hopefully it works out for him. Hopefully Rex Ryan knows what he's doing, because that team has playoff talent right now. But their quarterback situation is just such a question mark. So we'll see if it works out for them or not. I'm totally in a wait and see on this. I'm not laying down any predictions on that one. Let's see more quarterback news in Houston, as they named Jamie Hoyer the starting quarterback over Ryan Mallett. I believe Ryan Mallett's immaturity and personality and, just lack of a good head on his shoulders is what resulted in that. If you're watching the show Hard Knocks on HBO, the Texans are the team on there this year. You'll get to see just what I'm talking about with Ryan Mallett's idiocy. He's missing practices because of quote-unquote oversleeping. When you miss work from oversleeping, you went out and partied the last night and got shwasted, and now you're hungover or passed out or blacked out, and that's why you're still sleeping. It's not sleeping. You're passed out, okay? So that's how one reason that Hoyer got the job. Not the entire reason. Just one example of the things that were taken into account and how Mallett didn't win the job, because from a football playing standpoint, simply physically what you do to play the game, Ryan Mallett is better than Brian Hoyer. Period. I think I called him Jamie Hoyer before. My bad. But Mallett's a way better player than Hoyer is. Hoyer is a better quarterback than Mallett is. Hoyer will be consistent. Hoyer will be predictable. Hoyer will lead. He's got the intangibles, and Mallett apparently, at least, has no intangibles. So yeah, Hoyer's your quarterback for the Texans. In Cleveland, Johnny Manziel is having soreness in his elbow, possibly his shoulder as well, but I know the elbow especially. So they've actually shut him down for the preseason. Will reactivate him in the regular season should he improve on his health. And that would make Josh McCown the starter for the Cleveland Browns. It's only a matter of time before last year repeats itself, and McCown is Hoyer and Manziel is Manziel. Look for that. I definitely look for that. Last quarterback note here: the Washington Redskins decided on a quarterback, and they went with Kirk Cousins, who was my gut feeling the whole time, unless politics demanded that RG3 be the guy. RG3, it will be interesting to see how long he is able to remain a Washington Redskin. He was getting on trouble for liking pictures that that were on Instagram, asking for the firing of Daniel Snyder, the owner, who's like the one guy that's been in RG3's corner the whole time. But it'll be interesting to see how long he stays in Washington, if he's able to land on another team, and if that amounts to anything. I honestly think he's done. I think RG3's done, personally. If I had to place a bet, I think he blew his opportunity, and he's done. He's, it's a pattern. It's just, you peaked, and then it's regression, and the next phase of regression, and the next phase of regression, and then it's, I have no reason to believe that's going to change. So I think RG3's not just done as a starter for the Redskins, but I think he's done as a starter in the NFL, period. And within a year or two, he will be out of the NFL entirely. That's my prediction on that. Also, a little bit of Chicago Bears news. Ranch Briggs. Oh, hello, Ranch Briggs. How are you? So nice to see you, Ranch Briggs. Why are you always busting my balls, Ranch Briggs? But anyway, Ranch Briggs Lance Briggs, outside linebacker extraordinaire for the Chicago